Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Genesis Block podcast. Today we're going to have another interview for you guys. But just before we introduce our interviewee, I'll just refresh you guys on if you're tuning in for the first time. So Genesis Block is a Web3 focused podcast. We focus on three different areas. So we have protocol analyses where we critically break down and fundamentally analyze Web3 protocols using the investment template that we've created. We do thematic analyses where we dive deep into Web3 themes and narratives. We provide our opinion on them. And we do Web3 community interviews where we interview founders, operators, and investors within the space. So from protocol analysis, we've done some episodes on and some articles on Ocean Protocol, Frax, DopeX, GMX, other types of protocols like that. From a thematic perspective, done ones on Web3 gaming, Web3 music, MEV, zero knowledge proofs, real world assets, and for a snapshot into some of our interviews. We've interviewed folks from Gauntlet and founders like Aki Balog, who's creating DLC Link, a way to trustlessly bridge Bitcoin, and also interviewed a bunch of others across the space. So thanks for tuning in. And today we've got Phillip with us from Sei Network. So Phillip is the marketing and growth lead at Sei Labs. And really excited to interview you, Phillip, and thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, super excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me. Big fans of the pod.
Perfect.
So with that, let's just kick it off. So Phillip, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background in crypto? What did you work on before Sei? What's your experience been like before and at Sei? And let's just get into your background and then we can dive deeper into Sei.
Yeah, definitely. So I've been in the crypto and Web3 space pretty much for the past 3 years, working primarily as a growth lead for different DeFi protocols. Started off my career joining a founding team on Solana. We were building cross-chain infrastructure. I served as the head of marketing and growth for that team. After that experience, I went on to join Trader Joe, where I helped execute a lot of the go-to-market strategy efforts for the multi-chain expansion of the DEX. So deploying the DEX on Arbitrum and BNB chain from a marketing perspective. And now I'm a part of Sei Labs growth team, where essentially I focus on ecosystem growth. A lot of what I do is hop on the phone with founders, ecosystem projects, and individuals and community members to see how we can further enable their growth within the ecosystem, trying to connect people with the right protocols or the right builders within the space to really empower everyone to grow across all the different verticals, whether it's DeFi, NFTs, or gaming. So far it's been such a, I think, great experience in the sense of seeing developers come from an idea to connecting with other team members and builders within the space, and then really building protocols that I think have very strong use cases across the different primitives of Web3. So it's been super exciting so far. Been passionate about crypto pretty much my whole life. Kind of knew I needed to make the jump, and I was, have been so happy that around 3 years ago I decided that this is the time to really explore my passion and start to meet people within the space. And I think that's one thing that's really been such a valuable experience from this, has been just being introduced to other builders and passionate people within the space, learning from each other, and seeing them build awesome stuff.
That's awesome. So I mean, as a growth lead, I guess my first question for you is, how do you view go-to-market in crypto? How does it differ from Web2 go-to-market? And what exactly is your system to take a protocol to market successfully, in your opinion?
Yeah, definitely. I think it all starts with first understanding your target audience, understanding how your product or service aligns with a need that they have and what value you're bringing. I think there's a lot of different use cases within crypto, and a lot of them have still restrictions or pain points that need to be solved. So for example, with Swim, which was the cross-chain infrastructure we were building, we understood that there was a need to be able to seamlessly transfer assets to and from EVM and non-EVM compatible chains. And then thinking about, when we're going to market and continuing to expand to different ecosystems, understanding, who are the main, what are people doing within the ecosystem? Are they trying to get tokens to trade NFTs, or maybe they're looking to explore different DeFi protocols or lending protocols, and then aligning kind of the value prop of our technology to what is needed to be solved or what benefits can be brought. And I think that's one thing that's super important is first just getting those two aligned, and then thinking about, who are the key players in the space. So when you're looking to expand to a new ecosystem or launch, you have to think about, which are the primary protocols being used, and how can we pursue them in a mutually beneficial relationship to pursue co-marketing and kind of take advantage of that audience overlap that you have. So that's kind of like the first step that I think about, really understanding the nuances of each ecosystem, and then looking to present the value prop of our protocol in a way that aligns with, what's top of mind.
Perfect. That sounds very interesting. And so in terms of what you did on your growth strategy on Solana and other places that you worked at, how did you implement that in the manner that you described? What were the nuances of implementing it for them? And actually, we can touch upon Sei later, but what are the nuances that you're looking at right now, given the market conditions and given just all the different facets of dealing with a Web3 protocol and how to market it to customers?
Yeah, definitely. I think with Solana specifically, especially when I was working in the ecosystem two or so years ago, it was really interesting. It was growing a lot, and I think the different primary use cases kind of have evolved. So at first it was kind of DeFi heavy, like Orca introduced their DEX, which was like the go-to place to get introduced to the ecosystem. And you had Serum, and you had kind of that FTX ecosystem that was powering a lot of Solana, and kind of leaning into that, understanding that this is where most of the users and the volume exists. So let's try to meet our target audience or target customers where they are, and show them that we have a product that they need. And it became very helpful because, as Solana was gaining so much popularity and credibility, people on Ethereum were like, hey, I want to start exploring some of these opportunities on Solana and, looking to transfer their assets. And it's still, it was a very siloed process. It wasn't a seamless way to get your assets across. So that's a specific way you see trends in crypto emerging, and things move pretty quickly. But, a trend like Solana's DeFi at that moment was very much so popping in a sense. So you're people want to go explore those opportunities. People are here to make money. People want to go see where the juiciest yields are, and then thinking about where what are the types of services and products that can enable those type of users. So I think that was the main focus with Solana. And I mean, it's similar when you think about kind of all the different ecosystems. I think right now Arbitrum's also pretty, or maybe a few months ago, Arbitrum is an interesting thing to look at, in the sense that their DeFi ecosystem started to thrive very much. So you had GMX and other key teams building very strong products that were really demanded for. And then you see kind of that shift that is kind of it's almost like history repeating itself, where users are hey, I've been doing a lot of farming on Ethereum or Avalanche, whatever it is, but I kind of want to start pursuing these Arbitrum opportunities. And you see a huge migration of users and a lot of opportunities coming up to service those users, to provide value to those users in one way or another.
And just on that angle, actually, so given the rapid pace of change and the really quick way in which trends develop in this space, how do you keep up with that, and how do you orient your strategies towards serving those trends and making sure that you capture the headwinds of those trends as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible?
Yeah, great question. And I think that was the first major lesson I learned as a growth and marketing lead within crypto, is that things move quickly, and you need to have your feet on the ground and your ears within the different Twitter conversations happening. I think we were lucky that a lot of the conversations about new trends and new things that were kind of top of mind happened on Twitter. So just following the right accounts, tracking the kind of thought leaders within the space, and always thinking about where are people going to be shifting their attention to next, really engaging in conversations with popular figures within the space, with founders that were kind of hinting on, you know, what was next for their protocols. I think it's a super important. I think that would be like the number one tip that I would give any marketer or growth lead within Web3 would be to make sure that you're staying ahead of all of these trends, because the protocols that are the most successful, in my opinion, with their go-to-market strategies or with their marketing initiatives are the ones that understand, you know, what's coming next, what is top of mind within our, you know, users within crypto, and even with NFTs. Like, you see so many shifts between, like, you know, Ethereum NFTs thriving, and then the Solana NFT ecosystem just popped up so quickly, and like it was just such an amazing thing to witness. And you see that those teams that were ready for it had already been prepping for it. They weren't late to the game. They were already very well prepared to service those users.
Got it. So I mean, I definitely agree with you. If you're a growth lead, you need to be extremely forward-looking, especially in a industry like crypto. My next question to you is, in an industry that's so volatile, where there are, you know, new narratives forming every month, maybe, how do you, you know, organically grow your protocol or your chain, you know, without hyping it up too much or relying too much on, you know, the community coming in and buying it for a brief moment? And how do you handle that volatility where if you hype it up too much, there can be an initial boom and then a quick bust, and it's then tough for protocols to regain that traction again if, you know, if the token price is like drastically fallen. So how do you control that dynamic where growth is sometimes really explosive, but you know, degrowth is also equally reflexive in nature?
Yeah, that's another great point. So I think, like, when you look across the Web3 landscape, across like all the different ecosystems that exist today, the one thing that all these successful protocols and teams have in common is that they have their core principles that they stick to. So yes, narratives change. Yes, different use cases arise. But when you look across all of those protocols that have been here for 2+ years, they all have their core principles, their core value prop that has stayed the same. Even with branding, I would incorporate that into it as well. Like, keeping a consistent brand, a consistent feel. You want to continue to reiterate the same value prop over and over again. It's okay to maybe change it once or twice, but you want to be known for one thing. So let's say you want to be known as like the easiest place or best place to swap your tokens in terms of price. Like, that's something that you want to stick to. And when you think about what do we want to prioritize, whether it's speed or decentralization or whatever it may be, like, these are things that should stay the same, because changing them kind of changes like the nature of your protocol. And then it becomes very hard to kind of convince your target audience that, hey, like, I know we were saying that we were all about, you know, X, but now we're actually all about Y. I think that's one thing that really all of the great protocols and teams, they stick to what, you know, the problem that they're trying to solve, and will continue to work towards it no matter what's happening in the macro, you know, economics, or like no matter what's happening within the industry. I think some teams on Solana are even good examples of that, with like so much happening within the space, but, you know, staying resilient and staying committed to why you're here in the first place. And I guess that applies to, you know, protocols across all the different ecosystems. Like, yeah, it might be tough with all of, like, you know, the lasting bear market or all the things you hear in like the macro news cycles, but the ones that are stay consistent and remember, you know, why they started this in the first place, are the ones that are able to be, you know, successful in the long run in a sustainable way, as you were mentioning.
Oh, and you know, just following on from that, what are some of the lessons that you learned from the last cycle in terms of marketing and growth? Like Yash mentioned around, you know, tokens and degrowth and things like that. Do you think that there were any lessons learned in terms of how people should engage with tokens and how tokens should be used? Because I think that, you know, from a personal perspective, I believe that people use tokens too flippantly in the last cycle, and really over-indexed on them as a tool for growth. But I think that they're just one part of a growth strategy, and they can actually be a double-edged sword if you don't apply them correctly. So, you know, very curious to hear your thoughts on how that experience has taught you, or like, you know, what lessons you've learned about, you know, the nature of tokens, tokenomics, and growth.
Yeah, I would think it comes down to two things: transparency and trust. Those are the two. When you see a lot of these protocols or even ecosystems that have had trouble with their kind of like token and growth efforts related to their token, it's mainly due to a lack of transparency. And with a lack of transparency comes with, setting your tokenomics or, setting the structure in a way that you're confident in it and you're not going to continue to change it. I think one thing that like hurts so many protocols and really leads to such a strong lack of trust within, the community and the protocol is that they either change their structures or they're not very transparent and keep a lot of information from their communities. And, the community knows this and they do their due diligence, they do their research, they do it because they truly care about your protocol. They care about your token and want to make sure that it's, kind of confirming what they believe in. And I think the best protocols and the best ecosystems have been the ones that have been very transparent, that haven't, said one thing and then say like, hey, like we know we said this, but we actually want to like retract that and do something different. And you're like, hey, like, I thought this was supposed to be like a decentralized organization. Like, why are there like, 3 people that keep on changing their mind or keep on holding information from us? And I think that's like a very prevalent topic across all of crypto is, trust. People like there's a strong lack of trust across a lot of different ecosystems and protocols for one reason or another, and gaining the trust with your community is such a pivotal thing if you really want to have a sustainable growth and sustainable success of your protocol.
Completely agree. It's kind of ironic in a funny way that we're building a trustless financial system, but we still rely on the trust of a community to grow our protocol. And with that, I guess we can pivot to what you're working on right now, which is Sei Network. So before we get into how you apply all of your learnings to growth at Sei, why don't we dive into exactly what Sei Network is, the story of how Sei Network was started, and what advantages does Sei Network have over other L1s out there today?
Yeah, definitely. Can start off with like a high level overview on Sei, and then I'd love to give like the genesis story of how it's created. So Sei is an open source general purpose L1 designed specifically for trading applications, optimized every layer of the stack to provide the best possible infrastructure for trading applications. And when I say trading applications, I think it's important to preface that trading applications are at the core of pretty much like every like use case within crypto. So when you think trading applications, I don't want you to think just like decentralized exchanges. It's really across DeFi, NFTs, and gaming. The fundamental use case, it all comes down to that fundamental use case of crypto, which is being able to trade digital assets on chain in a decentralized way. So with that being said, when you think about, the direct exchanges, whether it's like the Uniswaps or the Magic Edens that are exchanging digital assets in a very clear way, or when you think of like maybe other indirect trading applications that are, derive most of their volume and activity from trading. So when you think about MetaMask, when you think about Aave, like these aren't like top of mind trading applications, but why does someone set up a MetaMask wallet? It's because they want to go on Uniswap and, swap some tokens and pursue that opportunity that they heard of. So everything in crypto really goes down to that fundamental use case of trading digital assets. And with that being said, like Sei acknowledges that and builds, optimizes the tech stack to offer the best possible trading experience and offer the developers kind of the best infrastructure to build these trading applications. I think that's one kind of like advantage that Sei's had, is that we've learned a lot from the shortcomings and successes of other L1s when it comes to, how can we provide the best trading applications? What are some of the things that kind of restrict infrastructure to provide builders the opportunity to really build scalable applications? So I think that's like the core focus. And I think that transitions well into like the genesis story of Sei. So, well, first I'd like to mention that our co-founder, Jay, was an early employee at Robinhood. And he was there during the whole GameStop saga and realized kind of the importance for decentralization as like, everything that went down, kind of the whole hectic thing. He realized like, hey, like, I think the need for a financial system that runs in a decentralized and trustless way is extremely important. And then after that, Jay and our co-founder, Jeff, who has a background in finance and institutional like trading, started to look to build a decentralized exchange. And with that, they said like, hey, like where is the best place for us to build this decentralized exchange? So they looked across all the leading L1s and L2s and then started to realize like, there's a bunch of kind of prevailing scalability issues across all these different chains and ecosystems. And then they're like, you know, if we're really wanting to build kind of like the decentralized Binance or on-chain version of Binance, like none of these infrastructures that these L1s provide will allow us to do so. And that's kind of what started some conversations between Jay and Jeff that were like, hey, like maybe there's a strong need here for infrastructure and for an L1 that is actually able to scale with the industry. And, you know, if crypto really is to adopt like the next billion users, we need applications that will be able to scale. And when you need applications to be able to scale, those applications need infrastructure to build on that is scalable and that addresses a lot of like the prevailing issues when it comes to like technical optimizations and technical enhancements that will allow them to scale. And that's kind of how Sei came to be, learning a lot from the L1s and L2s that existed, seeing what some of them are doing right, what is restricting some of them, and then kind of taking that all in and preparing, building an infrastructure that would really provide trading applications and builders the best infrastructure to, you know, seamlessly and effectively trade digital assets. And with that being said, Sei is the fastest layer one for trading. And with like a handful of different technical optimizations, I won't go too deeply into them, but kind of like mechanisms to front run like MEV and built-in order matching engine for trading applications to leverage. Like these are a lot of the optimizations that like Jay and Jeff sat down. I was like, hey, like if I was building a trading application, like what would be like the key things that I need an infrastructure to provide and to be optimized for to provide my users the best trading experience? And that's kind of how everything came to be.
No, that sounds very interesting, and thanks for the really comprehensive overview of Sei. But you know, just to follow on from that, in terms of the tech itself, obviously, you know, in blockchains, one of the key things is that there are trade-offs. Trade-offs are inherent across the space, and you know, like you guys said that you were optimizing on scalability, on making the user experience as smooth and seamless as possible. What are some of the trade-offs that the technical side had to make in order to achieve this? You know, in order to meet the requirements that you outlined that the market was missing. Yeah, do you mind expanding a little bit on that?
Yeah, so like with Sei, like we like very much so understood kind of like the I think it's called like the trading dilemma that happens between these ecosystems, that it's decentralization, speed, and scalability. And we really looked to, you know, not make any major what's it called, like we wanted to focus on them all essentially. I know it's like sounds difficult, but we didn't think that just because, you know, an application is decentralized and fast that it shouldn't be able to scale. So then our founders and the technical team kind of looked into this, like, okay, like what is like, you know, holding back the scalability? What are the reasons that, you know, applications aren't able to process transactions in a fast way? And then they brought in stuff like automatic ordering bundling. I'm not like I don't want to get like too into the technical details, but like, because like, you know, I wasn't a part of the decision-making process that went into, you know, which of the optimizations really led to like the highest value. But pretty much just like trying to get to the root cause of like, you know, what is restricting scalability in the sense, and then like, you know, how can we change the process of approving transactions? How can we add, you know, how can we have mechanisms to fight negative MEV? How can we bring in parallelization to offer a better infrastructure for trading? All those things kind of were brought to be when trying to like break down like, you know, what's holding back a lot of these L1s and L2s that exist in the space today.
Got it. Yeah, that's pretty comprehensive overview of Sei, in my opinion. So my next question would be, you know, what exactly is the roadmap for Sei? What are goals you hope to achieve over the next year? And after all of that, what do you see the end game of Sei being? Like, what is the ideal end state for the Sei blockchain?
Yeah, definitely. So I think like when we think about like roadmap and future plans, like it always, like everything we do comes down to providing the best infrastructure for trading applications. That's kind of like the core. It's the thing that we talk about in all of our meetings. So that's kind of, and when I mentioned like those core principles that drive like, you know, the best teams, that's what we stick to. So all of our decisions and kind of future plans fall back on that. To be a little bit more specific, you know, we are in a very exciting time for our ecosystem and chain as we progress towards our mainnet launch. Our ecosystem is, I would say, flourishing. One thing that gets me most excited is that, like, you know, I have experience working in the Solana, Avalanche, Arbitrum ecosystems. And one thing that I think makes me most excited about our ecosystem is that all of these protocols that have proven their product market fit use cases, let's say, Sei has either one or out now multiple teams building for these use cases. So whether it's a perpetual exchange, whether it's an NFT launchpad, whether it's a gaming publisher, we like all of these applications that have really proven to have product market fit within crypto are emerging with super dedicated teams building on Sei. And I think that's one thing also that separates Sei from other L1s in the sense that, or L2s, in the sense that, currently Sei is not EVM compatible. So with that being said, the level of dedication we need from the teams that are building on Sei is much more, I would say, like long lasting. We have teams that don't just copy and paste their code and see what happens, which I think happens with a lot of EVM compatible chains. We have teams that are much more dedicated towards, laying the foundation, laying their roots within our ecosystem and looking to, flourish instead of just like copying and pasting their code, seeing if the volume comes, and then allocating their dedication now. I think you see that with some protocols that are like deployed on 50 different chains and like, you never heard of like 47 of them. I think that's like one key difference there. And yeah, man, I'm just like super excited to every time I hop on the phone with like ecosystem founders, they really understand how their protocols are, building towards a use cases that's very needed within crypto. And they're all super passionate also. I know it sounds kind of cliche, but when you hop on the phone with someone and you see how passionate they are about the protocol they're building, you see them working tirelessly to provide like the best user experience. You're like just something that like I can't hold back my excitement when I see it. And my role as like focusing on ecosystem growth, it's like, how can I further empower you? Like what resources, what tools can I provide you to accelerate you down the path? Like you have a very clear road ahead, and I want to help you get there. So anything I can do from the growth or marketing standpoint is something that I always want to apply. And then just something that like, I've been a part of a lot of early stage ecosystem product teams. I know what it's like when you have support from the labs team, or when you have support from the foundation, and it really does go a long way. I think that some ecosystems have kind of like a different approach to how they conduct their ecosystem support. And I just think it's something super important to really have a sustainable and flourishing ecosystem across all the different pillars of Web3, whether it's DeFi, NFTs, gaming, you name it.
Oh no, that's very interesting, and it's a great response actually. And I was wondering, so you mentioned that Sei was not EVM compatible. So from a trading perspective, a lot of tokens are ERC20s and Ethereum based, including ones with like the largest amount of liquidity in the ecosystem. So what types of assets do you think are traded on Sei? Would it be wrapped assets, and how exactly can users trade those assets on Sei and use them across other blockchains? And secondly, what is your growth strategy with regards to the types of protocols and projects that you want building on your ecosystem? So are you looking for more institutional ones? What are the types of use cases that you're trying to engender? Would you be able to dive a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, definitely. So to answer your first question, like that's definitely something that we've like acknowledged off the bat. And like with that being said, like, how do you ensure you have ample liquidity and ample access to liquidity is bridging partners, looking across the cross-chain infrastructure space and ensuring that you have all of your kind of you have it all covered. And I think that was maybe something that was kind of slept on at first, like, hey, like we don't need to focus too much on cross-chain interoperability, but like we very much so believe in like a multi-chain kind of like world and future. So with that being said, like we want to ensure that we have all the best bridging partners essentially, and make sure that they're ready to go and are able to offer a seamless experience. Like, I know probably better than anyone else, like what it's like to, have like a siloed bridging experience and kind of the restrictions it can have on an ecosystem's growth. So that's something that's like super important to us, and it's definitely one of like the things that are top of mind when it comes to external partners and people that we're really allocating a lot of resources and times to. For your second question about like ecosystem growth and how do you like approach it? I think like it kind of alludes to a lot of the things we've said in the past, but first, like understanding like what your protocol is. I think one thing that like sometimes some founders, especially like first time founders, struggle with is like understanding that like you can't be everything to everyone. You need to kind of hone in on one use case or like one essential thing that you offer, become the category leader in that, and then maybe go off and extend. I think that's one thing that you see across all the different ecosystems. That, you know, I won't name any names, but like you see these protocols that have done like so much efforts toward like becoming the go-to for this ecosystem or the go-to for this use case, and then like, hey, like let's go expand to this chain, or let's go like do this, and then you see them lose their dominance. Like the Solana NFT landscape essentially is like a very interesting kind of case study for that, where you saw like one protocol really leading the way, having market dominance over one use case, and then, you know, get a little greedier for one reason or another, want to expand and explore different things, and then you kind of lose that core thing that you spent so much time building on, and now have to go and, you know, try to gain the trust back. And I think that also kind of like alludes to something that we mentioned before. It's like it's hard to like go back or convince someone that like you've changed, or, you know, like people don't allocate so much time and resource and like energy to your chain. So like, you know, stick to one thing, continue to reinforce it, continue to reinforce your value prop, and lean into it, and your community will help you kind of share that and amplify what you guys are building.
Completely agree with that. So my next question is, you know, in the past year, we've seen two big L1s launched, which were, you know, heavily backed by VCs, Aptos and Sui. And there was a lot of promise before they launched that, you know, they're created with a new programming language and it can offer unique types of dApps. But post-launch, there's basically been nothing of note from either of these ecosystems, as far as I know. So to really launch a successful L1 and have it get organic usage, especially a chain that's not EVM compatible, you kind of need to offer a unique set of dApps for users to come and use, which they wouldn't be able to access anywhere else. So could you, you know, tell us about some of the dApps building on Sei Network that are unique and have unique architecture or unique tokenomics, or just something that you can't really do anywhere else?
Yeah, definitely. I think you bring up a really great point, and kind of going back to like Sei's like core like focus, it's that like, you know, providing the best infrastructure for trading. With that being said, you know, the fastest chain. And when you think about like, why are people in crypto in the first place, or why are the majority of people here in the crypto? They want to make money. So where are they going to trade? They're going to trade where they get the best prices. So like that's the focus here. Like, you know, maybe they want to take a long out on Bitcoin, or, you know, short Ethereum. They like, you know, if they're, you know, they have their assets on Ethereum, sure, but if they're getting a better price somewhere else and it's going to like significantly impact their profits, that's where people are going to start heading towards. So like at first, Sei really, and one thing that attracted me to Sei when I was like deciding where to like pursue my next career move, was that like Sei has like a no fluff approach to assessing these type of things, and really getting to like the core of why people trade, you know, the core motivations of, you know, like the different use cases within crypto. So I think that's one important thing to know, in the sense of like why someone trades in the first place, like why is someone using an application in the first place. And then to kind of allude to what you said about like the other ones, like 100%, like this is something that, you know, we've studied, we've really looked across the other ecosystem and said like, what were some of the moves that they made, or what were some of the infrastructure decisions that they implemented that kind of, you know, weren't aligned with what people really wanted, or weren't aligned with what builders wanted, and thinking about how can we create an ecosystem and a technology stack that allows developers to thrive. And then with that being said, bringing in more and more developers, which is like the crucial use case. When you look across all the different ecosystems, the ones that are most successful are the ones that have the best builders, and, you know, have the most amount of best builders building the best applications. Once you build the best applications, the users will come use your applications, hopefully to make money, to trade their NFT, to connect with people, to play games, whatever it may be. They want the best user experience. And I think that's one thing that's really holding back kind of like the whole crypto space in general, is kind of that like siloed user experience, or it's like very clunky. You have to like really understand like kind of the complexities of a lot of different protocols to be able to use them. And you still, you know, are susceptible to slow transaction times, or just like clunky UI, a bunch of different things. And yeah, I know I've kind of been like rambling, or if you want to ask like a follow-up question, I'd be happy to like provide more context.
Yeah, I actually do have a follow-up question. So, the way I'm thinking about Say now, from everything you mentioned, is that your core use case will always be trading and getting execution of your trades at the best prices possible. So, is the vision for Say to become kind of a trading infrastructure layer where other chains and protocols can kind of bridge to Say to execute trades, but all the other, or not all the other activity can still flourish on other chains, while using Say as just a kind of an execution layer for your trades to get the best price, which is how y'all will get in a lot of volumes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's like the immediate focus. Like very much so, like our focus now is like building out a flourishing ecosystem across the different pillars of, DeFi, NFTs, gaming, trying to provide the best, infrastructure and then resources and attention and support to builders. So we definitely want builders coming to build native apps on Say. And I think we've already started to see a lot of them. And a good example would be like Sushi. Sushi's coming to Say to build a perpetual exchange that's going to be different from what they have on other chains. I think that's an example of like teams coming and building native things on Say that either don't exist on other chains or aren't really able to function in the way that they will be able to on Say, because other chains don't offer a lot of like the tech optimizations that we have. So I think like that's like an important distinction to be made there.
And just, so following on from that, so I completely understand what you're talking about, trade execution and finding the best price. But there are a couple of aspects of that I wanted to probe on a little bit. So the first one would be if you're bridging to Say and you're trying to, the main assets that you would want to trade are the ones on other chains at the moment which have a lot of liquidity, and the way to use them on Say is to bridge them. Now bridges have got a lot of security risks. I think that the space has realized this pretty comprehensively over the last year. What are there any mitigations that Say has had in terms of those? And I completely understand, like all the different bridging partners that you've got, but all of those bridging partners also do have trade-offs in terms of their security. So each and each bridge is not, it's a separate beast which has its own considerations. So how do you guys account for that security risks that comes through by using bridges? And the second question would be, how do you incentivize liquidity to be built up on Say? Because obviously there are liquidity venues on other chains and across other ecosystems, but how do you make sure that people are able to port their liquidity over or provide liquidity to assets on Say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you bring up a great point with like security. Cross-chain, the cross-chain space has had a lot of kind of security concerns, and I think that's probably like what's most top of mind. Probably like one of the most essential kind of issues to address if like crypto is to be able to scale and bring in new users. So I think it's kind of like a combination of working with our bridging partners to make sure that kind of all of the possible grounds that we can cover are covered, in the sense that how the bridging partners for different ecosystems also put these safeguards in. And then as I mentioned, like with Say, we want to make sure that we kind of have backstops, like security measures, like I don't know, like the specific technical things that they have in place, but thinking about what type of kind of like not, the word's not optimizations, but I guess like tools and things to be incorporated into the technology stack that really like if there was to be a hack from, let's say, like if X bridge were to be hacked, how can we safeguard the users that are currently on Say? Thinking about a lot of these like inherent risks that do come with cross-chain interoperability that's kind of faced throughout the entire industry. And then for your second question, Say does have like a handful of liquidity alliances in place to, first like promote just like, ample liquidity being within the ecosystem. And then could you repeat? I mean, I think that like, I forgot what the last thing you said was, but what was it?
Sorry. Yeah. So the last question was about, like how you're going to be incentivizing and building up liquidity on Say, because a lot of liquidity is on other types of protocols and it's on other chains, how do you make sure that that liquidity gets ported over to Sei, or how do you incentivize that liquidity being ported over to Sei, to make sure that the trading experience is as seamless as possible?
Yeah, I got you. I think there's like, a handful of different things to pursue. Guess like the one that like we're focusing on, like given our like current like timeline, is like on the builders first. So making sure that builders have like, the ample funds and ecosystem grants, stuff like that, to first lay the foundation. Like obviously, like you can't have liquidity coming in if you don't have a strong foundation for all the different protocols. So that's why I say what the current focus is, and then continuing to apply the different things that our team has learned from our work across the different ecosystems to see which would be most effective. I think it is kind of important to note that like you want to be careful, because a lot of what ecosystems do will like they'll get an initial surge of liquidity, and then they have very hard times retaining it. And that's why you see so many L1s come up. They come up, lots of volume, and then a month later they're completely dead. I think it's like happened too much across like all the different ecosystems within crypto to like not learn from these mistakes. And when you look across at the end of all the different successful ecosystems, how were they first created? How did they first attract users? They each had one or two trading applications that created their ecosystem. Essentially, Uniswap's role in bringing users and volume to Ethereum is like probably the easiest way of describing that. And then looking across all the different ecosystems, whether it's Arbitrum, whether it's Solana, whether it's BNB chain, seeing how one or two trading applications were able to like lay the foundation for that huge influx of volume that came. And then what separates them is how they're able to retain it. Avalanche has a really interesting example of this, where it was literally the Ponzi time token that brought so many users. And I even had some of my, most of my friends like aren't so much in crypto, like here in Miami. And I asked them like they come up to me as like, hey, have you heard of Avalanche? Like, I want to start flowing in my money there. I heard there's a great opportunity, which was like, of course, like the Ponzi scheme that it was. And then very few efforts to retain a lot of the volume, and then it got driven out. Solana might be a better example of being able to actually, build applications that help retain that interest and excitement. But it's something that all ecosystems struggle with, like maybe like, besides Ethereum, which had that first mover advantage, really being able to retain the volume, retain the trading activity. That can't be done if you don't have, strong teams and strong protocols that are building kind of like in a sustainable way.
And how would you make sure
That
that sorry, yes, just wanted to follow up a
Yep.
very quick question from that. But how do you make sure that the applications that you're building, or well, not even make sure, but what are the types of applications that you would look to build that would be able to, create a more sticky user experience and, make sure that that liquidity is on Sei? Because some of the applications, like the ones that you mentioned, they are obviously with, they are present on other blockchains, maybe with not the same execution guarantees and the speed of execution as would happen on Sei, but they are there on other blockchains. So for a retail user, if they've got their assets on one chain, and they've got a DEX on that chain, would it be more of a UX problem to port their assets over just to find a slightly better execution price? And it might actually not happen so because of the cost associated with bridging, things like that. So how do you actually find the correct applications to build that will create that sticky user experience?
Yeah, and I think like based off like the first half of the stuff that you said there, like I think it's important to focus on like the early days of a lot of these ecosystems, and how did they get to where they are today, whether it's Solana, whether it's Ethereum, like how did they get that first like X amount of users and activity? That's kind of like the first thing you need to focus on. Like obviously you need that first influx, which is kind of what we spoke about over previous questions, and then retaining that. How do you retain it? I guess was like your second part of your question, which is like, I do think it all comes down to kind of user experience and then ecosystem. Like people aren't going to be interacting on a chain that doesn't have other, either developers building really cool stuff on. I think like an NFT ecosystem is a really good example of it. Like, yeah, like one project like will bring a lot of attention and maybe a lot of volume to the chain, but what will sustain it a really good marketplace, a really good launch pad, like having that foundation, and then having other strong teams being like, hey, like X NFT project did really good on Sei. Let me go and dedicate my like time and dedication towards building mine. And then you see that kind of network effect or flywheel start to occur where it's like, oh, this protocol is doing well. Like I'm going to come and bring this different use case. I think Arbitrum started to have that where it's like one or two DeFi protocols started having a lot of success, and then you just see a huge influx, and then you see the Uniswap go and deploy like V3 and V4 onto Arbitrum, and then you see the sustainability, the retention of that activity and of those users.
Got it. That perfectly segues into my next question, which is, what are some of the most interesting dApps that are currently building on Sei? And are they mainly DeFi focused, or do you all have, gaming and NFT related dApps also building on Sei?
Yeah, definitely have protocols building across like all the key pillars of Web3. Can start off with some of my favorite DeFi ones, but definitely want to highlight some of the NFT and gaming teams and protocols building because they are building like stuff that I think is super exciting. On the DeFi front, we have like SparrowSwap, which is probably like the best place to go and just get introduced to the ecosystem, like accessing tokens, like kind of like how Orca is like the first step into getting introduced to the Solana ecosystem, getting access to different ecosystem tokens. We have that, and then we have other protocols like Fusio, which actually is a very interesting kind of like degen way of I guess like prediction markets and trading. They have like a lot of exciting, and their UI and UX is like unbelievable. I like couldn't believe how enjoyable it is to use it. Like it's just something that's like not clunky at all. Feels almost like a Web2 application where it's like, oh wow, like this feels very familiar. Like it was my first time going on, like my first time going on and checking it out. I'm like, wow, like I like fully understand how to use this protocol. I fully understand how to leverage all of its features. So that's great. And then we have like Lavana, which has, I absolutely love their team. It's like a GMX style perp exchange, also building like a great user experience throughout and has some really bullish plans for the future. So those are kind of like my favorite DeFi protocols, while there's like many others. On the NFT front, we have Mizu and Dagora. Mizu is kind of like but they're both NFT marketplaces. I really like how Mizu is leaning into that, empowering the creators and traders within the NFT marketplace. They understand what's needed to really provide like a really strong NFT marketplace for both traders and people looking to deploy new projects, and artists like looking to empower them as well. So they're kind of like leading the charge in really like supporting the NFT ecosystem being like a bedrock, which I think is super important because when you look across all the different thriving NFT ecosystems, they each have like that one or two kind of exchange or launch pad that like helps give the foundation for projects to thrive. And then on gaming, we have a handful, but Tatami and Fable are probably my two favorite. Tatami is a gaming publisher. I think it would be easier, like kind of like Treasure DAO, a little bit different, but similar sense of like wanting to provide gaming focused founders a strong platform to launch and deploy games. They actually just launched one called Tetris, which is kind of like a degen spin to Tetris, which I think just like so fits in with like target audience, like crypto people looking to like bet some money on like a basic thing. Like when I go and look at like Stake or like all other of like those gaming and like casino type of websites or platforms, like this has like a similar vibe where it's like exciting. You're playing a game and like it has like that degen crypto twist to it. And then Fable is leaning into like this esports type of platform and protocol where it's like team up with people, play games against each other. It reminds me a lot of like what I've seen with like the thriving like gaming ecosystem outside of Web3, where it's like providing people like a place to like get together, play like their favorite games, and like win some money, compete with each other. I think like gaming overall is just like super bullish, just like within crypto and outside of crypto. I think it might be like with NFTs one of the main drivers for mainstream adoption. Like it's familiar, like it's not so like DeFi sometimes for people that crypto newbies that don't really understand things, like like, oh, like I have to like set up a wallet, or I have to like understand how like a perpetual exchange works, like all these things that are a little bit more kind of like technical over the head of like the average, like 20-year-old or 30-year-old that might not understand these things. These gaming and NFT platforms are much more familiar, and their user experience is very seamless, which I think is super crucial. Like we need to have seamless experiences. Like imagine in Web 2, if like you had to like use like 3 different applications to accomplish like one use case, like that can't be it. So that those are like the high level overview of some of the protocols. We do have a lot more others. I know I missed a bunch, but just super excited about all the protocols building on Sei right now.
Got it. That's very exciting. So for our viewers out there, if they wanted to start exploring the Sei ecosystem, where would be a good place to start? How would they educate themselves about it? Is there a wallet they can download to, kind of gauge what the UI would be like? So how would they just go about, embracing this ecosystem in general?
Yeah, my favorite question. So like definitely going to Sei's like Twitter account, website, docs, getting just familiar with there. We have like a lot of resources when it comes to like educating people about Sei and our ecosystem. So like that's an like good immediate first step. And then after Compass Wallet and Fin Wallet, both have amazing UIs, like super clean, super easy to use, very familiar to like all the different wallets you've used. Setting one or both of those up, and then just getting involved, going on to Sparrow Swap, which is live on testnet, swapping for some tokens. A lot of the protocols that I mentioned are already live on testnet. So you can go check them out, explore, get a good sense before we head into mainnet, start, seeing like, hey, like which are, some of my favorite dApps. And then the communities are also thriving. Hop into the Discords, connect with the people. One thing that really is special, I think, is that all of our founders, when you look across like my favorite DeFi protocols, my favorite NFT protocols are the ones where the founders are responding to people. They're within the community. They're showing how passionate they are. They're like one, like, they're one of us. So I think that's like really cool. Like, especially like Lavana, you go on Lavana's ecosystem and you're just like, feel this like welcoming. And it's a pretty big Discord community. I don't know the exact number now, but you hop in and you still have like, those connections that you make on a personal basis, and like even can ask like the core team or founders problems, like really across like all the communities we have, especially for our leading protocols that are a little bit more established. We do have a lot of like earlier stage protocols that are still in the building phase, but yeah, setting up your Compass wallet, setting up your Fin wallet, and then hopping into the Discords, great way to get introduced and start meeting awesome people.
That sounds awesome, man. And I guess we can wrap it up now. And I really love the consumer first focus that Sei Network is, trying to achieve. And I think lots of other chains can kind of take a hint from that, you need to build applications that consumers actually want to use, be it DeFi, NFTs, or gaming, anything. The first thing needs to be that it needs to be completely catered to your user. So kudos for that. And excited to see you guys head towards mainnet, and we'll definitely check out all these different apps you just mentioned.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Philip. And yeah, thanks so much for jumping on the pod. Our audience, hope you enjoyed the conversation we had here. And yeah, best of luck to you. Best of luck to Sei, and great to hear about your journey and that of Sei as well. So thanks for jumping on again.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me. Super excited to continue to see this pod crushing it. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. And, see you guys on the other side.
Cheers. Peace out. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys.
See you next time. Bye.